in Belgium will once more play host to the final round of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series on the 5th and the 6th of October. In 2018, the racing was intense at the finals, but who's going to grab the wins in 2019? With so many quick rookies in Elite 2 this season, who is going to come out on top? And in Elite 1, could Alan Day make NASCAR history and secure 3 back-to-back titles? It's the finals, it's Zolder, it's double championship points. Who'll be celebrating and heading towards victory lane, and who will be crowned the champion? Well, good morning everybody and welcome to Circuit Zolder here in Belgium for the final rounds of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It is double points. We will be crowning champions at this fantastic circuit that first opened in 1963, and the fast undulating Circuit Zolder will host the final event of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series season for the 5th consecutive season. The grid will also feature stronger than ever field. We'll see the Elite 1 cars heading out for qualifying shortly, and that group will contain no less than ace drivers who have previously won here at Circuit Zolder. Let's have a quick look at the track. There are 16 turns on this circuit. It is 4 kilometers long, 2.485 miles, and the key parts for the circuit, the chicanes that we'll see through turn number 5, 6, 8 and 9, the Jacques Villeneuve chicane, and indeed turns 15 and 16, the final couple of corners. But the difficult corners, turn 1, the hard braking into the left-hander at Eerst, and then from there it's the short run up to the rather tricky Sterrenbachbucht, which is turn number 2. So the drivers were out yesterday in free practice. They had free practice session in the early part of the afternoon. They had a second free practice session in the latter part of the afternoon, both of which were rather wet, to say the least. It is still damp out on circuit, particularly through the pines and the forest section of this beautiful, beautiful circuit here in Belgium. And that will take a while to dry out. So let's have a look at the circuit. On-board perspective with former Elite 2 champion and front-runner in this championship, Stinis Longines, at his local circuit, shows us around the track.
Welcome everybody in Zolder. We are here for the final race of the Euro NASCAR season. We come here in the first corner. It's a tricky corner, especially now in the rain. We take it in third gear. It's really slippery because normally it's a fast corner, so there is a lot of rubber on the track. Here we come in the second corner. Also here in the rain we stay outside. You see the car is sliding a lot. Now we accelerate to third gear. Normally when it's dry you just hit the limiter on the end of this corner. Normally it's flat. Here we stay in third, take a lot of speed. Also now it's slippery, but normally it's a really fast corner with no zone to go off the track. Now we brake to the first chicane. It's a really important braking zone because when you brake too late you have no margin to cut the track. We take this corner in second gear. We go over the hill. Also this one, it's very important to brake straight, because otherwise you lock the tire and your race is already gone. Here we are in the Villeneuve chicane, so yeah, it's a special track. The second corner now, it's really slippery because of the rubber on track. Here we come in one of the last and most difficult corners. We take it in dry, we take it in first gear. Now it's in second because of the rain. Now we go on the straight, the last straight, to go in the Jacques chicane. We go to third, then to fourth. Here we go back to second gear when it's dry, and also now we try to cut off a lot in the chicane, turn the car and go as quick as possible on throttle. Now we are already 1 lap further, so this was Stinis, my home track, Zolder.
So a fantastic insight around the circuit Zolder by Stinis Longines, former race winner here. He claimed pole position and set fastest lap and grabbed a race win here in the 2016 championship season. That was when he was racing in the Elite 2 division. He has stepped up to Elite 1, which is for the pro drivers, and had been leading the championship until the races at Hockenheim, where he had just the most awful weekend 2 weekends ago and dropped out of the championship lead, down to third in the championship standings. Well, one of these support sessions just continuing out on circuit at the moment. That means that there's just a slight delay to the start of the qualifying session for the Elite 1 division, but we will see those cars lining up down towards pit lane exit very, very shortly indeed. As I mentioned earlier on, we've got the title battle coming down to the wire this weekend. Loris Hazemans leading the championship, the Dutch driver who will be hoping for good things at the wheel of his Hendricks Motorsport number 50 Ford. Now, he comes into this weekend really on a high. He has had 4 back-to-back wins. He won the second of the 2 races at Most in the Czech Republic for the first ever Czech NASCAR Grand Prix. He then also won on the only oval circuit that we have in the calendar. That was Venray in the Netherlands, and he took a double race victory at the double points semi-finals at Hockenheim in Germany just 2 weekends ago. So he leads the championship on 425 points coming into this weekend, which means he has a 21-point advantage over the PK Carsport car that is driven by Nicola Rocca. That's the number 24 car. Nicola, who has been dabbling with the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series since 2013. His best overall finish in the series came in 2016, where he was in 4th position. But the 25-year-old Italian has been doing great things over the course of this year, scoring consistently, which is what he needs to do. He's had a win, he's had 3 seconds, he's had a third. So he's second in the championship standings. Say third in the championship standings, Stinus Longin, we've just seen the onboard lap from him. He had been, up until Hockenheim, Mr. Consistency, really, because he might not have had a win so far this season. In fact, he's not had a win since stepping up to the Elite 1 division, and he did that in 2017. He's not had an Elite 1 win as yet, but he did, in the early part of this season, claim 6 second places, and 4 of those were back-to-back. 2 second places at Brands Hatch, 2 also at Most in the Czech Republic. So he might lie third in the championship standings, 71 points off the championship leader Loris Hazemans, but he'll be hoping that he can get his championship aspirations back on track here as well. 3 times champion Ander Villarino, who was a double race winner at his home NASCAR Grand Prix in Spain when we were at Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia in April. He lies 4th in the championship standings, but he hasn't claimed a win since back there in April for round 1 of the championship season. That was on the 14th of April, so he would desperately like to return to victory lane. And now 5th in the standings as well, who also has had some difficulties throughout the season, is outgoing champion, or reigning champion. Whether he's outgoing or not, we'll only find out come the end of Sunday. 3 times a race winner so far this year, Alan Day, who will be joining me in the commentary box over the course of the weekend. So the support session is finished. We will see the cars lining up down in the pit lane very, very shortly. And what are ever drying conditions, actually. It was rather damp this morning here at Circuit Zolder when I first arrived at the circuit at around about 7:45 this morning. Still quite a cold ambient temperature, but the circulation of the support race session that's just finished has helped to dry out the track, certainly on the start-finish line. But as I said, with the circuit shrouded by pine trees, very beautiful section of the circuit as you head through the forested and pine section, and that is just going to take a while longer to dry. And even at pit lane exit there, you can see that there are still a few little puddles even at pit lane exit, as the remaining cars that were stuck in the pit lane at the end of the support race session will make their way back around the circuit and head off track. Remember, it's not just Elite 1, it's Elite 2 that comes to a finale over the course of this weekend. And in Elite 2, doesn't matter what happens this weekend, we will have a new winner, because there are none of the previous winners in Elite 2 that are on the grid over the course of this weekend. And the championship overall is between 2 rookies. Leading the championship is Giorgio Maggi in Elite 2. He drives the number 50 Hendricks Ford, so it's the same car that leads the Elite 2 championship in the hands of Giorgio Maggi, as leads the Elite 1 championship, which is in the hands of Loris Hazemans. So Giorgio Maggi is a rookie in this championship, one of many quick rookies that we've had this year. It's almost a disservice to call them a rookie. Rookie simply means that it is their first season in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It doesn't mean that they are inexperienced drivers by any stretch of the imagination. But Giorgio Maggi leads the championship for Hendricks with his Ford on 424 points coming into this weekend. Just 11 points behind him is the man for Dexwek DF1 Racing, Lasse Sorensen, who amazingly might only be 11 points off in the championship, but he didn't compete in the first 2 races. He only joined the championship for round 3 at Franciacorta, where he claimed victory in his first ever NASCAR race. So to miss out on the first 2 races, not score points associated with them, which is sort of 40 for a win in each of those races, so potentially 80 points that he dropped over the course of that weekend, to come into the finals weekend 11 points adrift, just goes to show what an amazing season Lasse Sorensen has had for Deckswet DF1 Racing at the wheel of his machine. And lying third in the championship is another quick rookie as well, who again had mixed fortunes at the Hockenheimring last time out. That's the Italian driver Vittorio Garelli, who drives for PK Carsport, the number 24 car that Nicola Rocca competes in Elite 1. So that's another car that's gone well in both the Elite 1 and the Elite 2 division, and you can just see that car poking its nose out of the garage now as all of the competitors are now slowly starting to appear in the pit lane. That number 24 car will be hoping to go well this weekend. And of course, remember, for PK Carsport, it is a Belgian team with some Belgian drivers amongst the entry list this weekend in the 2 cars that they've got out, 3 cars rather, that they've got out competing this weekend, and they'll be hoping that they might be able to do great things at their home NASCAR Grand Prix. So tension building. We can see drivers behind the wheel of the cars. I can see in the centre of your screen almost, you can just see the orange crash helmet. That's Fred Gabion racing for RDV Competition, driver who's finished in the runner-up spot 3 times in this championship and is, as things currently stand, lying 6th in the overall standings. Has had just 1 win this year. That came at Brands Hatch at the second of the 2 races that we had there, i.e. round 6 of the 2019 championship season. So most of the cars now poking out of the garage. The car that's at the very front of your screen is the number 12 Solaris Motorsport car. That's Francisco Cini, one of 3 drivers in the field that celebrated a birthday over this weekend as well. So Francisco Cini is a driver who had his birthday just, a couple of days ago. So happy birthday to Francisco Cini. Also renumbered car in Elite 2 for this weekend. If you've been watching all season, Team Bleaky Moreland have been running as car number 69 all season. Well, it runs as car number 70 this weekend because Michael Bleaky Moreland a couple of days ago celebrated his 70th birthday, and Mirko Schultes, who usually runs that number, the Mitsubishi Motors car, that is not out this weekend, and Mirko, who I'm sure may well be tuned in, listening with the family in Florida at the moment, enjoying a vacation, has very kindly allowed his number to be used. So the session has been delayed by 5 minutes, is the official line from race control. It looks like all the teams and all of the drivers are ready. Now, the way that they will line up, as and when they're called by race control, they will head in a particular order, if you've not watched before, down towards the end of the pit lane. And that order is dictated based on the combined results of the free practice sessions that took place yesterday. Quickest in free practice was number 54, Alon Day. So he will bring his Cal Racing Toyota to the front of the queue for this first 10 minutes of qualifying. And then behind him should line up the number 11 PK Carsport Chevy of Stinis Longjing. It was largely the first session that was the quickest that we had yesterday. They were both damp, it's just that session 2 was a little bit wetter, and therefore for the vast majority of drivers it was session 1 where the quicker times were posted. But for Stinis Longjing, he could only rely on his first session time because the car was not able to be out in the second session, unfortunately, because the driver that he shares the car with, which is Niels Albert, certainly for the Belgian spectators amongst them, that'll be a name that is very, very familiar to them. He is a double world cyclocross champion, he having claimed those 2 championships back in 2012, and his first world cyclocross championship came in 2009. But he had an off in the wet conditions and backed the car into the barriers. As it went backwards into the barriers, it then swung around, which meant that the front end of the car went into the barriers as well. Now, whilst Niels was okay, the car was a little bit beaten up, and it meant that it couldn't be turned around in time for Stinis Longjing to head out in free practice 2. But matters not in reality. That was the slower session, as it turned out. So the time posted by Alan Day in free practice, 1 minute 50.592. Stinis Longjing was second quickest, but just 34 thousandths of a second behind him. So just going to show how close it was in qualifying. And third quickest in free practice, a driver who has won here before at Circuit Zolder, has claimed the only win for Brax Racing, the team that he runs for. It is Mark Goosens, the number 78 Brax Racing Ford. which is sporting an entirely different livery for this weekend, a very un-Brax-like livery. Their cars are usually blue, but it's white and red for the number 78 car. So Mark Goossens will be hoping for good things, a Belgian team at a Belgian track, with Mark, of course, being a Belgian driver. So that combination, say, has claimed victory here before. That was back at 2017, the second of the two races that we had over the course of that weekend. So engines starting to spring into life. The number 27 there is another former Elite 2 champion, Tomo Ferrando, who's been going well recently at the wheel of his number 27 Ford. The car at the front of your screens is one of the Chevys that we've got, the Chevrolet SS. Now that is the Swiss-Italian Mauro Trione, who had been going really well at Hockenheim and was hoping for his best weekend of the season, but again sort of got caught up in a little bit of trouble in what was a fairly fraught weekend for quite a few drivers. Mauro Trione is one of the drivers that is eligible for the Challenger Trophy. Challenger Trophy is for bronze and silver graded drivers, such as decided by the officials that organise the championship, that enter the Elite 1 Series. So a gold graded driver is either a pro or a semi-pro or an AM driver potentially, but ones that are distinguished in international or national championships, and therefore gold graded drivers can only enter the Elite 1 Series. They can't enter Elite 2. If you're a silver driver, then that means that you're an amateur driver, but potentially one who shows high levels of performance or high levels of achievement. Now, if you're silver graded by the officials, you can enter the Elite 1 Championship, or you can decide to enter the Elite 2 Championship. You have a choice in reality. And if you're a bronze driver, then you are very much an amateur driver, not satisfying the criteria of either gold or silver. But again, for a bronze driver, they do have a choice. They can enter Elite 1, or they can enter the Elite 2 division. There is the brand new Brax Ford of Mark Goossens, the number 78 car. Great to see Mark returning to the championship, say a driver that's been a regular in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series over the last few years, but the last time that we saw Mark out was at Brands Hatch when we were there in the early part of June. He didn't appear at Most, at Venray or at Hockenheim, so he lies down in 22nd position in the championship, but at the pace, at a circuit that he knows very, very well indeed and has been hugely successful here over the years. That car went well. Fourth in the queue is going to be Gianmarco Ercoli. Now that number 9 Racers Motorsport Ford in the hands of Gianmarco Ercoli. He's another former Elite 2 champion, and so far he has got his own little bit of history written into the books, because he's the only driver to have stepped up from the Elite 2 division and won in Elite 1. Gianmarco Ercoli, and that came at Brands Hatch last year, so he's the only driver to have done that so far, stepped up from Elite 2 into Elite 1 and claimed a victory. Now Gianmarco will be hoping that he might be able to hoist himself up from what is 10th in the standings currently at the wheel of the number 9 Ford. His best result of the season so far came last time out at Hockenheim, where we saw him on the podium, the third step of the podium, for the first time this year. That's his only podium visit so far for Gianmarco Ercoli. So let's see what he might be able to do. Now, all of these cars are running the wet compound tyre in this session. You can see just on the sidewalls of the number 54 car of Alan Day, the reigning champion. You can just see the tread pattern on the very edges of it, so the circuit is still, certainly looking out of the commentary box, wet enough even on the start-finish line to warrant the treaded compound tyres. And so far, I think, if I cast my mind back, that's the only time we've had the requirement to use a wet compound tyre over the course of this season. It's slicks or wets. There's no intermediate tyre available to the drivers. They are not limited on the amount of wet tyres that they can use over the course of the season, but they do have to pre-order them with the officials. So, yeah, it depends how many you order up, but there is no set limit. There is on slick tyres, but not on the wet tyres. And as I think back, yeah, it is the only wet session we've had. We had a little bit of rain at Venray, but that was not when the NASCARs were out. That was when some of the supporting races were out and circulating. So it is the first wet, or at least at the moment, damp weekend that we've had. The weather forecast here in Belgium, better today. It is scheduled to be rather wet tomorrow as well, which the drivers have already acclimatised themselves to with the awful conditions that we had yesterday. It really was quite miserable at some points yesterday. And that's a British guy telling you that as well, so you can imagine just how it was sort of grey and rainy, and the skies were just cloudy all day. So it was a difficult session. If I Yeah, there was one session at Venray where we did have a little bit of rain. Yeah, with the onboard lap with Myatt Snyder. Thinking about it, it was damp, wasn't it? Yeah, so we have had a session where it's been damp. So green flag flies. We're about to get this 10-minute qualifying session underway. Remember, the top 12 cars after qualifying will go through for a further 5 minutes to fight it out for Superpole. But if you imagine it's a 10-minute session, well, the cars at the front of the queue are still going to take the best part of 2 minutes to do an outlap, which means that even for the likes of Alan Day, who is at the front of this queue, there's only 8 minutes left when he gets over the start-finish line. Those who are at the back of the queue have probably only got 7.5 or maybe 6.5 minutes before they can sort of get the quick laps in. And we were talking about the onboard lap and Venray and Myatt Snyder. Myatt Snyder is another driver that's going to join me in the commentary box, and he will be joining me later on this afternoon, or is it this morning? Can't think now, the timetable. I think it's later on this morning where we go live. He'll be joining me for the Elite 1 race today, and the Elite 2 race will be Alan Day later on this afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be joined in the commentary box for the Elite 2 race by Stinis Longjean, and for the Elite 1 race, Lassie Sorensen. So we've got a star-studded lineup of drivers joining me in the Circuit Zolder commentary box this weekend. There is the image that we get of the Gilles Villeneuve chicane, which this weekend is worth mentioning. Jacques Villeneuve is on the grid this weekend. It will be, I'm sure, emotionally a difficult weekend for Jack. That corner, of course, was the corner before the chicane was put in that claimed the life of his father here on the 8th of May 1982. Jack was literally just 11 years of age. He wasn't here that weekend. He was at home. It is his first visit to Zolder, so let's hope that despite the memories that this place holds for him, let's hope that Jack has a good weekend in his first ever visit to Circuit Zolder. So cars heading on to the first of the flying laps. We have seen, remember, a different pole sitter in Elite 1 in every qualifying session that we've had so far this season. Ander Villarino claimed pole position at Valencia in Spain at Circuit Ricardo Tormo for the first round of the championship. We then went to Franciacorta in Italy, and Alan Day grabbed pole position. Stinis Longjean grabbed pole position at Brands Hatch in the UK. Then on to Most for the first ever Czech NASCAR Grand Prix when Nicola Rocca grabbed pole position. On the oval circuit, it was Jacques Villeneuve that grabbed pole position, and last time out at Hockenheim, it was Loris Hazemans that took pole position. Might Mark Goosens, who leaps over the curves immediately, be able to grab a pole position here? If he could, that would mean that every single round this year we have had a different pole sitter, and I think that in itself would make history within the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. We'll have to look back and see whether that's the case, but I'm pretty sure that would be the case. You can see just how damp it is still at some parts of the circuit, so the key is going to be blending the throttle in, maybe a little bit of short shifting as Francisco Sili heads towards us at the wheel of the Solaris Motorsport Chevy. Behind him is the reigning Elite 2 champion, which is the second of the two RVD competition cars of Ulysse Delceau. So Francisco Sili had his birthday earlier on this weekend. As we say, he'll be hoping for good things. All of the cars largely still on their outlaps at the moment. Some are now just heading through to start their first flying lap, and looking through the first sector, the way things stand, Martin Dubec's going well through the first sector. Over the start-finish line goes Stinis Longjean and pops in the fastest time so far. Alan Day second quickest at the moment, 1 minute 45.945 for the number 54 Chevy. But Fred Gabion on the first flying lap at the wheel of his RDV competition number 3 car has gone to the top of the time. So the car's starting to build the speeds as they head round through Canal Box very shortly. Through the sweeping right-hander there is just where they're heading now. It's usually taken very, very quickly, but as we heard from Stinis Longjean, having to work the car much, much harder through that corner. So the number 11 PK Car Sport car sits second quickest in this qualifying session currently. Onto the brakes, in towards the braking area for cleaner chicane, the little chicane, before they then head up the hill through Sacramentelli and then into the braking area for the Villeneuve chicane once more. Very easy to snatch a brake as you head in towards that heavy braking area for the right and the left flicks at the Villeneuve chicane, and then up towards Telemann Bocht, which is where they're heading now, and then the speeds start to build again as they head round through the unnamed left-hand kink and then into the heavy braking area for Boulderberg Bocht, which is where they're heading now, heavily onto the brakes. You can see Alan Day, the tail end of the car, starting to wiggle around on him as he brings the yellow Chevy onto the straight in towards the final braking area for the Jackie X chicane. And as they now head in towards the braking area for the left and the right flicks, Alan Day this time through doesn't look as though it's going to be any quicker this lap, so I think he's going to try and start this next lap as the quick one, because his sector time suggesting that it's not going to be any quicker. I don't particularly think he lost time through the middle sector of it. Yeah, it was a slower lap from Alan Day, so he's still third quickest currently. Number 11 Stinis Longines has now dropped to third quickest actually. Alan Day now drops to fourth, because it is Fred Gabillon who is quickest still, but now Mark Goossens for Brax Racing is at the top of the times. Round through turn number 1, up towards Sterrebach Bocht, which is where Alan Day and Stinis Longines are just threading their way now through the fast right-hander. There is the pole-sitting car currently, Fred Gabillon. So he's not had a pole so far this year. Could he make it 7 out of 7? We'll find out. Session time ticking away. There are still just under 4 minutes of the session to go, but for the moment, RDV competition and Fred Gabillon top of the times, 1 minute 45.812. That is 0.099 of a second quicker than anybody else has managed in the session so far. Fred trying to work his way around through the circuit now. There is number 33, Ben Kriener. There is 24. That's one of the guys that's important for the championship. To see the nose of the number 24 car break Nicola Rocker with the number 88 car of Romain Iniesta right behind him. Here's the reigning Elite 2 champion, Ulysse Delceau, who is currently sitting 7th quickest, actually, Ulysse Delceau. So he's having a good qualifying session at the moment, using all of the circuit there, almost onto the grass as he worked his way in towards the left and right flicks at turn number 15 and 16, the Jackie X chicane. The rest of the field filing their way through Boulderberg Bocht. But for Alan Day, again, it looks as though this lap is not going to be any quicker for him. Well, a frustrating qualifying session so far in terms of sector times. It may well be that we have the tyres perhaps just getting a little bit too warm now because the circuit has dried. There's a bit of damage, isn't there, to the front end of Mark Goossens' car. It makes me wonder as to whether that has had an issue. But we've had a change, and an important 2 changes actually at the top of the times, because it's now the number 50 Ford of the championship leader, Loris Hazemans, that has gone to the top of the times, 1 minute 45.269. And Guillaume de Vondre, a winner here in the Elite 2 division a couple of years ago, is now 2nd quickest at the wheel of his deck sweat Chevy. So that means that Fred Gabillon is no longer on pole position. He is even off the front row at the moment. He's dropped down into 3rd place, so they've still got to keep pushing. So this is the car that now heads onto the provisional pole position. The sector times for Loris Hazemans on this lap as he heads in towards the braking area for Cleaner Chicane, and he will break the beam and see as to whether that is going to be a further improvement for him. Doesn't look as though it will be on this lap. Yeah, slower first sector for Loris Hazemans, so he's done the hard work. Does look as though potentially he might be heading towards, well, not pole position, remember this is just the top 12 that go through to Superpole. So Hazemans topping the times. Who is in 12th position at the moment? It is Dylan Derdala, who is a non-championship driver for PK Carsport, driving the number 98 car. He is in 12th place at the moment, and 13th is Luca Lasser, double former champion from 2009-2010, who for the moment is potentially not going to make it through to Superpole. So there are a few surprises actually. Ander Villarino won't make it through to Superpole, potentially Jacques Villeneuve won't, neither will Thomas Ferrando, another former Elite 2 champion, and their sector time suggesting they need to keep pushing on. Good improvement there. That was Gianmarco Ercoli that's just had a good improvement as he's gone over the start-finish line, but the rest of the drivers all still pressing on. Nobody coming into the pits, largely because they know the circuit is drying, and if it keeps drying, the times are likely to improve. But we're now into the final 40 seconds of this qualifying session. Where's Nicola Rocca? We haven't mentioned him much at the moment. Nicola Rocca is in 11th, so he's only just making it through to Superpole at the moment, the number 24 car that's just gone through shot. Here comes Ulysse Delceau towards us now. Ulysse is sitting inside the top 10 and is looking as though he is highly likely to go through to Superpole. But on this lap, hooking it together, Thomas Ferrando might be down in 15th place at the moment, but has gone quicker than he's gone through the first sector, has gone quicker than anybody has gone through the second sector. Here comes in towards the braking Sebastian Bleekie-Molen at the wheel of that renumbered 69 car for this particular session. Thomas Ferrando has completed his lap. It wasn't quite good enough. It has hoisted him up through the order. He's well and truly in towards Superpole now, having just gone 4th quickest. So a good lap having been put in by that number 27 Cal Racing Ford Mustang. But the checkered flag is now out in this session. The clock has ticked to 0. Anybody that's on a quick lap can still keep going, and for some of them they certainly need to, because we've got some important drivers missing out on pole position. The likes of Luca Lasserre will miss out on pole position, and Ander Villarino will, as pulling off the circuit. There is Sebastian Bleekie-Molen. Did he miss his braking area into the boulder back? But the drivers were told what they needed to do if they overshot that corner, and it may well be that that's exactly what Sebastian Bleekie-Molen did there. So a few cars opting to head into the pit lane. There goes the number 99 car into pit lane. That is Guillaume de Flandre. Loris Hazeman's heads down pit road as well. All of these cars already having taken the checkered flag. The last couple of cars just flashing their way over the start-finish line to take the checkered flag, which means that we are just going to see, I think, Nicola Rocca, who's just taken the checkered flag now, lies, second in the championship standings, has, sounds like I'm being derogatory, I'm not, scraped his way through into the Superpole session, but he's through. That's all that counts. He is in 12th quickest, and that means that Sebastian Bleekie-Molen now misses out on Superpole, as does Dylan Derdala. But important ones that miss out on Superpole, the likes of Luca Lasserre, a double former champion, and Villarino, the most successful driver in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, only 19th quickest in that session on his first ever visit to Circuit Zolder. The number 32 Go Fast Chevy of Jacques Villeneuve also doesn't make it through. Maratrione, who is, I think, still yet to come over the start-finish line, will not make it through. And usually very quick indeed, but the Spaniard, Salvador Tinio Arroyo, has not made it through either. So there's a few names there I would have thought might be into Superpole, but just wasn't to be in the end. And unfortunately, it looks as though another driver that's missed out on Superpole was the Memphis racing car of Alexander Graf, who had gone quicker than he'd previously gone through the first sector, was quicker than anybody through the second sector, but lost a bit of time through the third sector. So a mistake there may be costing him dear. He was only 15th in the end. So the hot cars heading into pit lane. There is that car, the Memphis Racing Chevy, in the hands of Alexander Graf, who is joined again by the Elite 2 driver Freddie Hemburg over the course of this weekend. Great to have Freddie back in the championship, but Alexander, I think, will be rather disappointed with that. The lap had been going well, but whatever happened in the final sector cost him dear, and meant that a chance of getting through to Superpole eluded him, at least on this occasion. So the cars that will be heading through to Superpole, we might just be able to get sort of a graphic that shows us the top 12, but those top 12 will then fight it out for a further 5 minutes to decide who lines up on the pole position for the penultimate round of the 2019 championship season. It will see the number 50 Ford of Loris Hazeman's, the Hendricks Motorsport Ford, head through to Superpole. The number 99 Dexwet DF1 Racing Chevy of Guillaume de Flandre will head through. Number 78 Mark Goosens with his Brax Racing Ford also through to Superpole, as is the number 27 Cal Racing Ford of Thomas Ferrando. Returning behind the wheel of a race car for 5 months and getting through to Superpole. Well done to number 90 Alex Sedgwick, the British driver for Brax Racing, at the wheel of his Chevy. He's feeling a bit under the weather with the virus at the moment, but he's done well at the wheel of that car to head through to Superpole. He was 5th quickest. 6th was number 3 Fred Gabion for RDV Competition, and his Chevy is through, as is Stinis Longji, number 11 with the PK Car Sport Chevy. 8th and through to Superpole, man that was quickest in the free practice sessions yesterday, the number 54 Cal Racing Chevy of Alan Day. 9th and through to Superpole, number 88 Romain Iniesta for Racing Engineering and his Ford. The Ford from Racers Motorsport of Gianmarco Ercoli, the number 9, is through to Superpole, as is 36 Ulysse Delso for RDV Competition, the reigning Elite 2 champion with his Chevy. And 12th and through to Superpole is number 24 Nicola Rocca. So that is for PK Car Sport, his Chevy. That is the top 12 cars that all head through to Superpole, and those top 12 cars were all separated by less than a second. It was 0.950 of a second that separated those 4 cars around the lap here at Circuit Zolder. Remember, the lap is 4 kilometres or there or thereabouts, at 2.5 miles. It's actually 2.485 to be absolutely precise. So those are the 12 cars that are now lining up down there at pit lane, and the order in which they are lining up at the bottom of the pit lane is based on the times that they've just posted in that first aspect of qualifying, which means that Loris Hasemans was quickest in the main qualifying session. He will be first out for Superpole. Now, whether some of the drivers are going to roll the dice here and head out on slicks, I'm not entirely sure. We can't quite see from that camera angle, but the circuit is certainly drier. The difficulty is that in a Superpole session it's just 5 minutes, so you don't get really a great deal of time to get any temperature into a set of slick tyres on a damp track. If it was a little bit longer, you'd stand half a chance, but there is not a great deal. And I think, yeah, some of those cars are now on slick tyres. So, yeah, absolutely. You can see the vast majority of those cars now. I can't see tread patterns around the edges of them. Now, it looks as though Fred Gabion's car, right, Fred Gabion, the number 3 car there, you can just see a little bit of tread pattern on the edge of that one. So he is still on a wet tyre. The number 54 car of Alan Day, with a bit of damage to the front corner of it there, is now on a slick tyre by the look of that, as is Romain Iniesta as well. So I think from the cars that we can see, the only one I spotted was definitely on wets was Fred Gabion. The rest of them all look to be on the slick tyre there, other than Gianmarco Ercoli has also gone for a treaded tyre, I think, by the look of that. It's very difficult to see, but that just looks as though it's got a tiny bit of tread pattern around the edge, as does Ulysse Delceau's as well. So yeah, you can just see on the rear tyre of Ulysse Delceau's, you can see the tread pattern a bit more. So the number 9, the number 36, the number 3, all looking as though they are on a wet tyre. They're all just being held at the end of pit lane rather than all to go out in one great big group. They're just being held for a few seconds so they can find their own little bit of clear track. Stinis Longji lighting up the rears before the session even got underway to try and build some temperature. This is going to be a hugely, hugely intriguing session. Albeit, red flags. I just spotted a red flag out on the circuit there on one of the marshal's posts. In fact, as I look out of my commentary box window, yeah, I can see a red flag being waved by a marshal on the start-finish line, as well as on the shot there that you can see. In fact, that's a marshal I can see out of the window. So quite what's happened, I'm not entirely sure, but before we even get the Superpole session underway, it's been stopped. So I'm not sure what has happened. All of the cars will head back into pit lane and go back to their original positions, but what has brought about this red flag, I'm sort of scratching my head at the moment. So there is Gianmarco Ercoli. Here's one of the drivers that has opted for the wet tyre. Now it does give the possibility, look at how much Stinis Longin is trying to work those tyres to build a bit of temperature into the slick tyres that he has gone for, as is the number 24 car, the sister car to it for PK Car Sport, which is Nicola Rocca. As I say, at least I suppose in some respects this red flag might be a good thing, because it gives them another lap to build a little bit of temperature into their tyres, as long as they're then not held too much at the end of pit lane to allow those temperatures to all sort of disappear again. But you can certainly understand why the likes of Stinis Longin was lighting up the rears in the pit lane. When he was given the green flag at the end of pit lane, again he dropped the clutch. You can see the smoke come from the tail end of the car, and then was weaving from side to side to try and build not just tyre temperature but build brake temperature as well. If you can build the temperature in the brakes, that heat then radiates out into the wheel rim. The wheel rim then starts to warm the tyre up from the inside and increase the pressures and build tyre temperatures. So the whole combination of things that help build the tyre temperature. You can totally understand why Stinis Longin was doing that. Right, there's the number 50 now. Right, the number 50, Loris Hasemans. Now, this is a good thing for him, the red flag coming out, because off is coming a set of wet tyres. You can see the tread patterns on the side of them, and on is going a set of slick tyres. So that is a very, very fortunate red flag for Loris Hasemans, because I do agree with the drivers that have made the decision for slick tyres. I was looking out of my commentary box window, and the dry patches on the start-finish line are ever increasing. And I did think that, yeah, slicks would be the gamble that I would go for if I were out there, but what do I know? And for Loris Hasemans, he gambled the other way. He will lose his spot in the queue potentially, so he was scheduled to be first in the queue, but he may end up then having to lose that position because the cars are already queuing back up down the end of pit lane. Now, what brought about the red flag, I still can't see. How many have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, plus Loris Hazeman's, all 12 cars. So clearly nobody had an off, but there was obviously some information that race control received, which meant that they had to throw the red flag in the session. So we will wait and see as to what the problem was. Either way, the important thing is all 12 cars are there, which means that we can have another go at getting this Superpole session underway for the Elite 1 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Now, are they being... Right, they are being brought back down to the bottom of pit lane. And it is now in the order that they came into pit lane. So, clock is now showing, because of the red flag, that there are only 7 minutes and 20 seconds to go. So they're going to have to get on with this here and try and build those temperatures. And it is going to be almost like a one-lap shootout, I suspect, because the outlap will build a bit of temperature. The second lap may build a little bit more, but it will be your final qualifying lap that's going to be the hugely important one here. And looking at the skies, we're not in danger of having any rainfall either, so the circuit will only dry in this session. What might Guillaume de Flandre be able to do at the wheel of that Deck Sweat Racing Chevy? You can see again damage to the front end of his car. The curbs here through some of the chicanes are a little bit high for all of the right reasons, to keep you off them. But of course, as a result of the cars being so low at the front, if you do take a bit too much curb, you are in danger of damaging it. And that is, by the look of things, what's happened to the number 99 Deck Sweat DF1 car of Guillaume de Flandre there. So there is the championship leader, number 50, Loris Hazeman, having been thrown a bit of a lifeline, really, being able to change from wets to slick tyres. Is it going to be another pole position for Loris Hazeman? Might we have a new pole sitter for the 7th time out of 7 so far this season? Well, we will find out in a few minutes' time. Now, I said the clock was showing 7 minutes a while ago. It's now showing 3. Which has got me scratching my head slightly. I think the clock may be kept ticking under the red flag conditions because, 3 minutes to go, which means that the drivers are going to get 2 flying laps. That's all. That's all they are going to get in this one. And it's the finals. It's double points. There are no extra points for pole position. Remember, 80 points for a win in each of the 2 races this weekend for the Elite 1 division. Plus, from your start position to your finish position, if you gain the most places, an extra 8 points available as well. So that is what 176 points potentially available as a maximum for any one driver over the course of this weekend, and that's if they end up with qualifying at the back and working their way through to a win and gain the most places. So there's still plenty of points available, which means mathematically there are still a lot of drivers that could win this championship. Sliding the car is Guillaume de Flandre as he came out of Stedderback Book there, and that was canal boxed actually, wasn't it, up towards the braking area for the next of the corners, which is the cleaner chicane. Tomo Ferrando at the wheel of his Ford, hoping that he might be able to do good things. Gianmarco Ercoli is, I think, one of the drivers that's still on wet tyres at the moment. There's number 90, Alex Sedgwick, his return to racing after Brands Hatch. I gather from race control, change of tyres under red flag is under investigation. Now, the only one I saw doing that was Loris Hazeman's. I think everybody else stuck with the decision that they'd made. There is Yuli Stalso. He is, without question, on the wet tyres. You could see that when the cars were assembled there in pit lane. But at the moment, it is Fred Gabion who has posted the fastest first sector. Tomo Ferrando has posted the fastest second sector, as they're all on their first flying lap. So over the start-finish line goes Guillaume de Flandre. Still see that damage to the front end of his car. He's the first car to chalk a flying lap into the book in the Superpole session. 1:45, 1:94, but that is already bettered by the number 27 car of Tomo Ferrando. So for the moment, Guillaume de Flandre is going to have to count on this next lap to be even quicker. Fred Gabion, in the meantime, goes to the top of the times for RDV competition. He was quick in the main part of qualifying. There's a bit more bodywork on the floor there, so somebody else has had a leap over the curves and has lost a little bit of bodywork somewhere out on circuit. Watch out for Nicola Rocca on this lap, because he may well head towards the top of the times. As we look at Guillaume de Flandre, here comes Tomo Ferrando, currently second quickest in Superpole, which is showing there are only 26 seconds to go now as well. Gianmarco Ercoli is next up. He's another car that's running on a wet tyre. The bodywork, I think, was off the Brax Racing Ford of Mark Goossens, which seems to have lost its front left wing now. But there is the provisional pole sitter, number 3, Fred Gabion for RDV Competition. Uses all of the curb, but doesn't cause any real damage to the car as he just takes enough of it, but not too much. Again on this lap, he's on an absolute flyer, Fred Gabion. The checkered flag is out. Gabion is quicker than anybody has gone through the first sector of the lap, but he's bottled up at the moment behind the number 90 Brax Racing car in the hands of Alex Sedgwick, the British driver, who is currently 10th quickest in this final Superpole session for Elite 1 of the 2019 championship season. Through the braking area for Boulderback booked they will go. Alex Sedgwick, I don't think, is really holding up Fred Gabion, so it's not going to compromise the lap. It is a slightly slower second sector, actually, from Fred Gabion, who may well have done enough here, and we could be on for making history. De Vondre is the first of the cars to take the checkered flag. He will line up on the second row of the grid at best at the moment, third quickest. Tomo Ferrando goes through and sets the new fastest time that we've seen in the session, 1 minute 44.104 for number 27, Tomo Ferrando. Is anybody else going to be able to go quicker? Well, Stinis Longines on this lap, I would suggest we watch as well, because he might be 12th quickest in this Superpole session, i.e. last, but he is on an absolute flyer this time. He's just heading in towards the braking area for the Jackie Inks chicane, and he might be able to head towards pole position. He has gone through and is 4th quickest in the end. It wasn't quite enough for him. So number 99 that we see on screen, Guillaume de Flandre, not quickest in the session, but the car behind him, Tomo Ferrando, is the Cal Racing Ford, heads onto pole position, and that does mean we've just made a little bit of history as well. That is 7 different pole sitters out of 7 different qualifying sessions in the Elite 1 division for the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. It is also the first Elite 1 pole position for Tomo Ferrando as well. Could he convert it to his first Elite 1 win? Well, we will only find out a little bit later on over the course of this afternoon when we go live for our first Elite 1 race of the day. And of course that will take place later on this afternoon. But Tomo Ferrando is going to be very pleased indeed. Had to deal with mixed conditions. He was one of the drivers that opted to head out onto the slick tyre for the Superpole session. And well, that certainly worked beautifully well for him. And can he convert it to his first Elite 1 race win? Well, that Elite 1 race scheduled to get underway, it will go green at 13:45 Central European time. The stream, however, will go live half an hour before that, so 13:15 will go live with the stream. So just to confirm, not sure whether we're going to get a graphic on the screen, but number 27, Tomo Ferrando, was quickest of all with a 1:44.104. That was just over a tenth of a second quicker than number 3, Fred Gabion, who did look as though he was heading for his first pole of the season. There are the times just coming up now. Fred Gabion, second quickest for RDV Competition, his Chevy, with a 1:44.271. Third quickest was Mark Goossens for Brax Racing, and 4th in the end for PK Car Sports, Stinis Longines. 5th, Romain Iniesta for Racing Engineering. 6th goes the way of the championship leader, Loris Hazemans. 7th for Gianmarco Ercoli. 8th for Guillaume de Flandre for Dexwet DF1, driver who, as we say, has claimed victory here previously. 9th is 36 Ulysse Delso in the second of the 2 RVD competition cars. 10th place on his return to the championship for number 90, another Brax car of Alex Sedgwick. And the final 2 in Superpole. Number 24, Nicole Rocca, lying second in the championship standings to Loris Hazemans, but neither of them really having an ideal qualifying session as far as they're concerned. And 12th quickest, he was quickest in free practice yesterday, but slowest in the Superpole session. Work to be done for the back-to-back champion, the reigning champion, Alan Day, at the wheel of the number 54 Cal Racing Chevy. So that's it, done and dusted for the Elite 1 division. There will be a very quick changeover of drivers and tyre allocation as well, because all of the cars will then need to be moved onto the tyres that have been allocated for the Elite 2 drivers, and then they will head out onto the circuit and repeat the same process in reality. A slightly longer qualifying session for Elite 2 this year, because they have a slightly shorter race. So the Elite 2 qualifying session will be held over 20 minutes. Always used to be the same, but it's a 20-minute qualifying session for Elite 2. And then the top 12 will head through to Superpole. So it's a longer qualifying session for Elite 2, but they get a shorter race. The Elite 1 races are 18 laps, whereas the Elite 2 races are 15 laps. So over the whole course of a weekend, it doesn't matter whether you're an Elite 1 driver or an Elite 2 driver, the track time that's allocated to you is pretty much identical. So the car's already being backed out of their garages, ready to head down pit road. Remember, there's a raft of different championships up for grabs this weekend. It's not just the overall champion in Elite 1 and Elite 2 that's up for grabs. In the Elite 1 Championship, we've also got the Junior Trophy up for grabs, which is for drivers of 25 years and under at the beginning of the season that enter the Elite 1 Championship. We've also got the Challenger Trophy in Elite 1 as well, which is for those bronze and silver graded drivers. And now we've got the Elite 2 drivers out there. There's another 3 championships within that to watch out for as well. We've got the Legend Trophy in Elite 2, the cars that are heading out there now. That's for bronze drivers aged 40 or over at the beginning of the season then to the Elite 2 Championship. We've got the Rookie Trophy as well, which is for drivers entered into the Elite 2 Championship in their first season of racing, and the Lady Trophy as well for women drivers entered into the Elite 2 Championship. And don't forget, we've also got the Teams Championship to watch out for as well. The number 50 Hendricks Ford leading that from the number 24 PK Car Sport Chevy. Coming into this weekend, 73 points is the gap in the Teams Championship. So there's a raft of things to be decided over the course of this final weekend of racing this year for the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. The Elite 2 competitors heading down pit road. There's the number 31 Cal Racing Chevy. Heading up towards us now is the third of the PK Car Sport cars for this weekend, which is Paul van Poller, who has been doing a bit of racing with PK Car Sport. He competed at Hockenheim a couple of weekends ago. He was also at Hockenheim in 2018 competing with them, so it's his third weekend of racing, I think, in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. The number 23 heading towards us now is Ian-Erik Vardem. Ian-Erik is one of many Scandinavians we've got in the field over this season, and he's a driver who is right up there in the Legend Trophy standings. He's a rookie to the championship, but he lies 12th overall in the standings. Just 1 point separates him from the driver that leads the Legend Trophy. Remember, that's for drivers aged 40 and over, and that is 70-year-old now, Michael Bleekie-Molen. There is number 66, Lasse Sorensen. He is the driver who lies second in the championship standings. That number 66 Chevy has gone beautifully well all season in the hands of the Big Dane, who has been doing great things with it so far this year. Lasse Sorensen, he has had some 5 wins over the course of the season, and one of those at Brands Hatch. He claimed 44 points for, wasn't just 40 for the win, he claimed 44 points in total, so the extra 4 he got for claiming the most improved places over his grid position. And why? Because he started off the back of the grid and still came through to win. There's number 7, Martin Dubeck. Very, very busy driver, Martin Dubeck, the only Czech driver we've got in the field. Competes in both Elite 1 and in Elite 2. Lies 9th in the championship standings in Elite 2. Had his best result of the season at the first round, actually, where he was on the podium. His only podium visit of the season so far. Finished 3rd in Valencia. So cars heading on to their flying laps, the first few flying laps, the vast majority of them. Because it's a 20-minute session, they won't stay out there for the whole of it. They will come in and tweak the tyre pressures and see whether there's any further adjustments they might wish to do to the cars. Over the start-finish line goes number 66. That is Lasse Sorensen. Watch out for this one. Lasse second in the championship standings. So he missed out on the first 2 races of the season. Here's another driver that we need to keep an eye on as well. Myatt Snyder, the American driver. One of a couple of Americans we've got in the field over the course of this weekend. And there is Michael Bleekie-Molen, number 70 for this weekend, celebrated his 70th birthday just a couple of weekends ago. And Michael still as quick as ever, ex-Formula 1 driver, of course, having competed in the latter part of the 70s, 77 and 78 with the likes of Ram and ATS in Formula 1. But this is our championship leader, number 50, Giorgio Maggi, on his first flying lap around the circuit. Heads into the braking area for what looked like cleaner chicane there before he then starts to head up Sacrament Telling. Should appear now, yep, just into shot, heading in towards the braking area for the Villeneuve chicane. For sector times for him at this stage, well, Giorgio Maggi through the first sector hasn't shown a time up, so it might be his outlap. He might have been a little bit later to start this session. His second sector is also not that great either. Now there is number 64, Matthias Hauer, rejoining the championship. Matthias, we saw him out at Hockenheim, his only appearance of the season so far. business commitments have kept him away from the 2019 championship season. But the first of the flying laps about to come in as over the start-finish line goes Michael Bleaky-Molan, the number 70 car, and for the moment is on provisional pole position. But already number 2 Jesse Vartiernan for Alex Caffey Racing, the Finnish driver, has gone that little bit quicker, so Bleaky-Molan drops to second quickest, but it was a very quick first lap for Michael Bleaky-Molan, using all of that huge amounts of experience that he's got to work his way to the sharp end for the moment. But remember, it could well be the final lap of this qualifying session that is the important one, because the circuit, without question, will continue to dry. The damp patches at some parts of the circuit looking ever drier, other parts of the circuit now looking absolutely bone dry. There's no question at all that I think all of the cars will now be out there on their slick tyres. Can't confirm that, but looking at how dry the circuit is, you'd be rather foolish to do anything other. So there goes number 2 Jesse Vartiernan, for the moment on provisional pole position. Actually, through the first sector of this lap, he's gone quicker than he did previously, so could be heading towards a further improvement on his lap. Jesse Vartiernan joining him provisionally at the sharp end for this qualifying session. Remember, Superpole still to come is number 7 Martin Dubeck, the Ford for Hendricks Motorsport in the hands of the Czech driver. Already having been out in the Elite 1 session, of course, he's got a bit more experience behind the wheel of that car this morning in these conditions. But Jesse Vartiernan going well through the first sector, a little bit slower through the second sector. Number 99 Justin Kuntz for Decksweck DF1 had a very difficult weekend at his home NASCAR Grand Prix. You can see the front splitter of that car is missing entirely now. There's a little bit of damage, and off and into the gravel. We have lost one there, and that looks like that is at Kanalbocht, is it, that he's gone off there? Can't quite see who that is that's gone missing, but the car's off and into the gravel trap. That is going to at least bring about localised yellow flags. Whether that will bring about a halt to the session, we will have to wait and see. But either way, it's all not quite gone to plan for somebody out there, and in fact it looks as though we may have to stop the session. Yeah, the red flags are indeed just coming out to stop the session because of the stricken car that's gone off there. It certainly looked as though it was at Kanalbocht, which is turn number 3 here, 16 corners that we've got. So just really difficult with the camera that we can see to pick out who it is. I do have a possibility, but I'm just going to wait and see. I think I might know who it is. And the car, no, well, the car that I thought it was has just gone by the shot, so it's not that one. Right, okay, so scratching my head to find out exactly who it is at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see as to who may well have gone missing. So the car's heading down pit road. The session stopped. It was scheduled to be a 20-minute session. The session stopped with 13 minutes and 22 seconds to go. Shouldn't take too long to get the stricken car out of harm's way. Everybody else making it round and into the pit lane area. Marshall's on hand to drag the car backwards out of the way. And then, so the best thing we can do is look to who's not come in the pit lane as yet. And there are a few that haven't made it into the pit lane at the moment, but they will still just be circulating out there at the moment. So I think we gather it may well be the Speedhouse Mitsubishi Motors Chevy number 64. I mentioned that he just returned to the championship. Business commitments had kept him away, but I think it might be Matthias Hauer that's gone off there and into the gravel trap, unfortunately. So for the man who raced in Elite 1 last year, I had a quick chat to Matthias when he reappeared at Hockenheim just a couple of weekends ago, and he'd say racing in Elite 1 is tough, says the 53-year-old German, and therefore Elite 2 he thinks he's better suited to. So the plan is to come back and do a full season next season, but remain in Elite 2, which is in this weekend. But tricky conditions still. I've just popped him off the circuit. I would have thought Kanalbocht probably, because it's an open expanse of tarmac, it's not within the trees, was probably dry, but the difficulty is it's such a quick corner that you just maybe don't quite get it right, or maybe dip a wheel even just onto the white line or the grass on the way in, and that may well have been just what rotated the car around, but we can't quite see from the fixed camera position as to what happened on the way into the corner. We just catch him on the way out, but shouldn't be a great deal of damage done to the car. Let's hope that he's not flat spotted the 4 brand new general tyres that he's been allocated for this weekend. The general slick tyres are allocated just 4 per car, so the drivers in Elite 1 get 4 brand new general slick tyres for the weekend. The drivers in Elite 2 get 4 brand new slick tyres as well for the weekend, and the others have to be carried over from previous events. So if he's had a rotation and flat spotted them, that may be difficult. They will, without question, have picked up a raft of gravel, but as you can see, there's no real damage to the car at all. Maybe a tiny bit on the front end, but that might have been there from an earlier session. So Matthias Hau will take it very gingerly. You can see the dirty sidewalls to the tyres. You can see bits of gravel coming out from underneath it as he works the car back round towards the pit lane. Number 64 Chevy. And then once he's safely back in the pit lane, we can get the remaining 13 minutes and 22 seconds of this Elite 2 qualifying session underway. Remember, there's still the extra 5 minutes of Superpole to come at the moment, and for some drivers, they hadn't even got a flying lap in. So the likes of Nicholas Risitano, the number 8 Racers Motorsport Ford, Vittorio Garelli, Pierluigi Veronesi, the championship leader Giorgio Maggi, Justin Kuntz, Alessandro Bugatti, Niels Albert, Nave Talor, Ariana Cassoli, Sven von Lara, who joins the championship this weekend. Sven, his first weekend in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, and Hugo de Sadlier all actually didn't get a flying lap in. And Hugo de Sadlier, just while I mention that, is one to watch out for, really. He might be a non-championship driver, which means that he does score points. It's unusual the way this works in reality. Non-championship drivers do score points, but what they don't do is take points away from the championship drivers. So, for instance, Hugo de Sadlier finished in 2nd position in one of the races at Hockenheim. It was a double points weekend, so 2nd position would have netted him double points, 70 points at Hockenheim. But because he's non-championship, he scores those 70 points, but the driver in 3rd place, who was a championship driver, also scores 70, because Hugo de Sadlier cannot take points away from the drivers below. So it's an unusual one that non-championship drivers, in reality, whoever finishes the next place behind a non-championship driver scores the same amount of points of them. So you can't take points away. So he was one to watch out for. He had his debut weekend at the Hockenheim ring at the wheel of the number 88 Racing Engineering Ford. We can see the sister car to it, the number 48, just being pushed backwards there in pit lane. But he had a solid weekend with a 2nd and a 3rd place, and comes from a good family of racers as well. His father was a very competitive racer. His brother Jerome racing just last weekend in the UK at Donington Park, and unfortunately missed out on the championship. So comes from a good family racing background as Hugo de Sadlier. So the number 48 car, which is Myatt Snyder, who'll be joining him in the commentary box, has just been pushed backwards in pit lane. The sister car to it, the red and yellow car that you can see pointing towards us in pit lane, is Hugo de Sadlier, but out on circuit comes Nave Talor. Again, you can see damage to the front end of the car. You can see which drivers, whether it be Elite 1 or Elite 2, have been using a bit more curb. There's a bike taken out of the number 24 car as well, which for this session is in the hands of former AutoGP champion, the Italian driver, the 25-year-old Vittorio Garelli. Here goes number 77 of Freddie Hemberg. There's Ian-Eric Varden, who lies 2nd in the Legend Trophy standings, the Finnish driver, who's got huge amounts of experience as well. He used to race in the Ferrari Challenge Scandinavia. He's been runner-up in the V8 Thunder cars and Camaro Cup up in Finland last year as well. But as for Matthias Hauer, he's rather much on his own in pit lane at the moment. The Speedhouse Mission Motors number 64 up on the jacks, being inspected by the teams behind. That was a big sideways moment for Michael Bleekie-Molen coming out of, well, that was Boulderback's book, wasn't it, that he was coming out of, as we look towards Martin Dubeck. There's Myatt Snyder. Of course, all the cars now having to do another outlap in reality to build some temperatures back into their tyres. The 78 car is Sven von Lara, the Clio Cup Benelux champion from 2017. He was 4th in the Porsche Challenge Benelux back in 2014, but it's his debut weekend in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series at the wheel of that number 78 Brax Racing Ford. See what he might be able to do in this qualifying session. Could he see himself through into Superpole? There are 22 cars out there and circulating, and with everybody having to do another outlap to build the temperatures, it's going to be a while before we start to see the fast times coming in. And unbelievably, after 20 minutes, there's only 10 and a half remaining already, so it really has, with the red flag interruption, disappeared very quickly. So they need to get on with it here and press on. Remember, it was Jesse Vartinen that was topping the times before the red flag came out. Here's number 66, Lassie Sorensen, being chased around the circuit by the number 9, current hands of the 18-year-old Italian Alessandro Brigatti. So up towards Lucien Bianchi-Bocht, sweeping their way through the right-hander Pierluigi Veronesi, who shares the number 27 Ford with Tomo Ferrando. Remember, that is the car that qualified on pole position in the Elite 1 session in the hands of Pierluigi Veronesi. It's gone well this season. Pierluigi 7th in the overall standings. He's had a best of 4th so far, just missed out on his first podium at Hockenheim a couple of weekends ago, but that will give him momentum coming into this weekend. Remember, it is Giorgio Maggi that leads the championship, but he hasn't really put a flying lap in as yet. However, watch out for the number 50 Ford on this lap. Quicker than he's gone through the first sector, quicker than anybody has gone through the second sector. We might see that number 50 Ford topping the times before too much longer. Back over the start-finish line goes Michael Bleekie-Molen. Briefly went back to the top of the times, but the number two car of Jesse Vartinen betters it. And actually, the time that Jesse Vartinen at the wheel of number 2 put in was quicker than the championship leader, Giorgio Maggi, on that lap, because Maggi now is second quickest, but Jesse Vartinen loving Zolder and these tricky conditions, really getting to grips with it. Jesse Vartinen, he had his best weekend of racing at Hockenheim last time out, where he was on the podium in both of the races, finished in 3rd place in both races at Hockenheim in the semi-finals. That moved him up to 8th in the championship standings. And at the moment, he is beating the time that's been posted by this car here, the championship leader, the Swiss driver Giorgio Maggi. The gap between the pair of them is actually a full second. He is 1.062 seconds quicker than Giorgio Maggi, who's just dropped down to 3rd quickest in this session, because there's improvement there for the sister car to Giorgio Maggi. The Hendricks Ford of Martin Dubeck, his teammate, just goes quicker than Giorgio Maggi. So Dubeck up to 2nd, Giorgio Maggi now 3rd quickest as he flicks his way through the Villeneuve chicane and starts to build the speeds again in towards the braking air for Boulderback. Book he'll be going before too much longer, which is turn number 12. And Giorgio Maggi this time through quicker than anybody through the first sector, quicker than anybody has gone through the second sector. The number 50 Ford may well go to the top of the times before too much longer. There goes Ian Eric Varden through the shot. He is down in 11th place at the moment, so could well be heading through towards the Superpole session, but Giorgio Maggi's lap must be coming to an end very shortly. You can just see the Ford heading towards the conclusion of the lap, and he has indeed gone to the top of the times. 1 minute 42.910. Lassie Sorensen, the number 66, though, now joins him at the sharp end. That number 66, Dexwek DF1 Racing Chevrolet Camaro in the hands of the Danish driver is a 1 minute 45.033. Unbelievably, that might be the second quickest time, but that is 2 seconds off what Giorgio Maggi has done. And actually, Lassie Sorensen no longer second. Advait Dioda at the wheel of the number 31 Cal Racing Chevy goes now second quickest, the Indian driver. So Lassie Sorensen has still got some work to do in this session. Just going to see when the car turns in towards the corners whether he's on the slick tyre. You would have thought so. Yes, indeed, that's the slick tyre that he's on. But for the moment, he is now 5th quickest. Time's all improving. Maggi still top of the times, but it's a Hendricks Motorsport 1-2 at the moment. The sister car to it, number 7 of Martin Dubeck, is now up there. Advait Dioda, who was second, is now 4th quickest at the wheel of the number 31, so the London-based Indian needs to keep pressing on here. Another driver that's gone well really throughout this season. He's 4th in the standings, Advait Dioda. Best of a second place in the season. That was at Brands Hatch in the first of the 2 races that we had there, round 5 of the 2019 NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. Advait Dioda's sector times, again suggesting there is possible improvement from him. I think there might be possible improvement from Martin Dubeck as well. He might be second quickest to his Hendricks Motorsport teammate, but Dubeck, through the first part of the lap, has just gone quicker than anybody has managed so far. Over the start-finish line comes Jesse Vartinen, 7th quickest at the moment. He was right up there, wasn't he? But others around him have improved. Ian And Eric Varden is about to flash his way over the start-finish line. He was inside the top 12 and heading towards Superpole. He's now slithered his way down to 14th. Here comes now the number 31 car of Advait Dioda over the start-finish line. Does he improve his time? Yes, he does. He goes third quickest. And off, that's Pierluigi Veronese that's had a bit of an off. That is coming out of the Villeneuve chicane and up towards Telemann-Bocht. He's reversing the car backwards, or being pushed backwards actually, with the assistance of the marshals. Quite what's happened to Pierluigi Veronese there. It's been covered by localised yellows at the moment. Conversations going on between the Italian and the Belgian marshals, but that brings about localised yellow flags. So in theory, through that sector, the drivers must need to ease off a little bit. Just wondering as to whether the car, it looks totally undamaged, so it makes me wonder whether it's a mechanical issue that he's had with the car. He's putting a bit of left-hand lock on now, and yeah, from being pushed backwards, he's now going to be trying pushed forwards to get the number 27 out of harm's way, and that's such a shame for the car that qualified on pole position in the Elite 1 session in the hands of Tomo Ferrando. It is at the moment 15th in this session, Pierluigi Veronese, so with that car now stricken out on circuit, he's not going to make it through to Superpole. Big bite taken out of the number 98 PK Car Sport Chevy. That's the car that's in the hands of Paul van Pollard for this session. His third weekend of racing in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, but he's fifth quickest currently. Sector time this time is not going to be an improvement for him as he heads out of the Villeneuve chicane. In fact, for the vast majority of the drivers now, they've done the hard work. Third quickest has just been popped in by Hugo de Sadlier, so it's Martin Dubec now that goes to the top of the times. Giorgio Maggi second quickest, sitting in the pit lane currently, and third quickest Hugo de Sadlier, who's on a very quick lap at the wheel of number 88 Racing Engineering Ford. He's just turning his way, I think that might be Hugo de Sadlier just turning his way through the Jackie chicane currently. There goes the red and yellow car over the start finish line. That's Mike Snyder, that's the sister car to it, so that's not the car of Hugo de Sadlier. Martin Dubec had been on pole position in this qualifying session, or the top of the times for Superpole. Hugo de Sadlier had indeed done what I thought he would do on that lap. We didn't see it, but he was quickest through the first sector. He was quicker than anybody through the second and the third sector. So Hugo de Sadlier, a non-championship driver, heads to the top of the times. The one to watch out for on this lap is Vittorio Garelli. So I'm hoping we might be able to pick up on the number 24 car, who through the first sector is quicker than anybody. Through the second sector has gone quicker than he has previously gone. But now we now see Hugo de Sadlier, who, again on this lap, is quicker than anybody through the first sector. So the Swiss driver racing for the Spanish team still as quick as ever, just works his way past Nave Talal, the Israeli driver, who gets out of his way. Doesn't really compromise, I don't think, the time of Hugo de Sadlier. We'll wait and see as to what the second sector time looks like for him, but certainly the first part of the lap looked very quick indeed. In towards the braking area now for Bolderbach-Buck. Through the tight turn 12, difficult corner, as we heard from Stinis Longines on the onboard lap. The flicks at the Jochenring-Bocht is where they just work their way through now, which is taken absolutely flat out as you shift up through the gears, and then in towards the braking area for the final left and right flicks at Jackie X-Bocht. But for Hugo de Sadlier, he's lost time in that middle sector. Now, Vittorio Garelli, this car here, is second quickest currently in this qualifying session. He's just 68 thousandths of a second adrift of the time that was popped in by Hugo de Sadlier a lap or so ago. But Jesse Vartiernan on this lap, who, remember, was right up there, dropped down through the order, is now back up to fifth place, is flying again on this lap, but he's made a big mistake heading in towards the Villeneuve chicane. He was on a really hot lap there, Jesse Vartiernan. We just picked up on the mistake as he shortcut the Villeneuve chicane. He was quicker than anybody through the first sector of the lap, so the Finnish driver was really pushing hard, but just stepped beyond the limits there and had to shortcut the chicane, which will have compromised this lap, and I think has caused a very slight amount of damage to the front end of the number 2 Alex Caffey Racing Chevrolet. So that's going to undo the hard work that he'd been doing at the beginning of the lap there. So we've now got just 30 seconds remaining in this qualifying session, And would you believe it, 12th in this qualifying session, work to do, but should be on for an improvement on this lap. Is Lasse Sorensen over the start-finish line? He goes, got Vittorio Garelli in front of him, and the lap for Lasse Sorensen moves him up to 8th place, so he could breathe a bit of a sigh of relief there, because he was on the bubble really. 12th place with just 1 lap to go to try and make it through and cling on to Superpole. Well, he has managed to do that. Valencia race winner for the first time we've seen in this session. Nicolas Risitano claims his first and only NASCAR Whelen Euro Series win at Valencia at the wheel of the number 8 Races Motorsport Chevy. The Italian is 11th quickest currently. 12th quickest is Justin Kuntz, who now moves up to 7th, so that's a good lap from the German. First of the cars to take the checkered flag as well, so he is through to the Superpole session. At the moment, Myatt Snyder might be missing out. No, good final lap from Myatt Snyder. He moves from 13th to 8th, so that now means that the car that may well miss out on it is going to be Ben Creaney, the youngest driver that we've got in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series field, just 16 years of age. He just misses out on Superpole, the young Scotsman. 13th quickest and already taken the checkered flag, so he can't respond, unfortunately. So we see lots of tape on the front of Freddie Hemberg's car now. Didn't see Alexander Graf have a bit of an off, but there's lots and lots of tape applied to the front end of the Memphis Racing Chevy. So that car is going to appear in Superpole. That finished in 12th position, so that's the last of the cars to make it through to the 5-minute Superpole session that will be coming up very, very shortly indeed. I think the last car is about to take the checkered flag now, which is going to be Vittorio Garelli, who goes quickest on that final lap. So Vittorio Garelli, stamping his authority on the session, goes to the top of the times with a 1 minute 42.306. Look at the damage to the front end of Paul van Pollart's car. There'll be maybe a little bit of work needing to be done for that before we see that car head back out onto circuit. It will, however, not appear in the Superpole session, so he's just missed out in the end, unfortunately, Paul van Pollart. So PK Car Sport have got plenty of time to go to work to fix the number 98, because the next time it will be back out on track is for the Elite 1 race later on this afternoon. So for Superpole then, the cars that will be heading through to Superpole, that car there, quickest in the main qualifying session. Vittorio Garelli posting a time of a 1 minute 42.306, safely sees him through to Superpole. He was, however, only 49 1/1000ths of a second quicker than the second quickest car in the main qualifying session, which goes to Hugo de Sadlier, his Racing Engineering Ford, again going beautifully well, as it did when he made his debut at the Hockenheimring just 2 weekends ago. The number 88 Ford was second quickest, so are those drivers going to carry that momentum through into the Superpole session that will be coming up very, very shortly indeed. Also through to Superpole, the number 7 Hendricks Motorsport Ford of Martin Dubac, who was third quickest. You can just see him already heading out of the garage and down towards the end of pit lane. Fourth quickest and through to Superpole, number 9 Alessandro Bugatti, his Racers Motorsport Ford. And fifth quickest is number 50, the championship leader in his Hendricks Ford, Giorgio Maggi. Sixth quickest, was impressed with him in the session, and the number 2 car that's just trundling its way down pit lane, as you can see on your screens there, is Jesse Vartinen for Alex Caffey Racing. His Chevy, 6th quickest through to Superpole. Remember, it's the top 12 that go through. 7th, number 99, Justin Kuntz for Dexwet DF1 Racing. And his Chevy, 8th quickest, number 48, left it late in the session, but did what he needed to do. Myatt Snyder, the Racing Engineering Ford. And 9th, the Valencia winner, number 8, Nicola Risitano, his Chevy for Racers Motorsport. 10th, 31, which is the driver who lies 4th in the championship standings, Advait Yoda for Cal Racing. 11th is number 66, Lasse Sorensen, Dexwet DF1 Racing Chevy, which I thought would be right up there, but only 11th quickest in qualifying. Let's see what happens though in Superpole. And 12th through to Superpole. There must have been a driver lose a lap there somewhere, because a while ago Paul van Pollart was showing down in 13th place, but the number 98 car now shows in 12th place. So his PK Car Sport Ford has indeed made it through by the look of things. So there may well have been a little bit of investigation done as to why some of the cars maybe sort of left parts of the circuit and were transgressing circuit limits. I think the penalty was to car number 77, Freddie Hemberg, the Memphis Racing Chevy, was due to have been out in, but there was some sort of incident out on circuit, so Freddie Hemberg being given a penalty, doesn't make it through to Superpole as a result of that, which means that number 98, Paul van Pollart, will make it through. So PK Car Sport now, I was saying they've got plenty of time to sort the damage to the front of that car, because it will be next back out in the Elite 1 race this afternoon. Forget that, yeah. They'll be working on it now, because it's going to be back out in Superpole in a few moments' time. You can see it right in the bottom left corner of your screen with the bonnet up, actually, as they no doubt just check a few other things out to ensure that that car is ready to go in the hands of Paul van Poelart, of course, at his local circuit. Belgian driver for the Belgian NASCAR Grand Prix. Work to be done. So the top 12 cars through. As for the important drivers in terms of the championship, Giorgio Maggi through to the session, Lasse Sorensen through, Vittorio Garelli certainly through because he was quickest in qualifying, Advait Deodar, Mayat Snyder, Nicolas Risitano through, so the top 6 in the championship all through to Superpole. Poor old Pierluigi Veronese, having stopped out on circuit, 7th in the championship, not through to Superpole. Jesse Vartien, who's 8th in the championship, through. Martin Dubeck, who's 9th in the championship, through as well. So all of the front runners in the championship have made it through to this Superpole session, including Justin Kuntz, who's 10th in the championship, another driver that will head out into this 5-minute Superpole session, which has already gone green. Paul van Poelart's car still being worked on by Anthony Kumpen and the PK Car Sport team. The tape has been applied where is ever needed, and therefore he can join the session, which went green 40 seconds ago. So the car's working their way out around the circuit to squeeze probably just 2 flying laps into this one. Vittorio Garelli at the wheel of one of 3 PK Car Sport Chevys in the field this weekend. There is the championship leading car, Giorgio Maggi. He's desperate for good things this weekend. Pole positions so far this year. Well, Giorgio Maggi is the only driver that has had more than one. He's had 2 pole positions so far, and they've come in the 3 pole positions so far this year. They've come in the last 3 events as well. Back-to-back poles at Most, at Venray, and at Hockenheim for Giorgio Maggi. Mike Snyder has had a pole position at the wheel of his Racing Engineering Ford. The American Florian Venturi, who joined us for the early part of the championship, took a pole position. That came at Franciacorta. And also Andre Castro took a pole position at Brands Hatch. So there goes Paul van Poelart. You can see the gaffer tape to the front end of the number 98 PK Car Sport Chevy in the hands of the Belgian rookie. But all of the cars for the moment on their out lap in reality, so they are about to start their flying laps. And the number 24 PK Car Sport Chevy of Vittorio Garelli, who lies 3rd in the championship standings, is the first to start the out lap. Snatched a break there with the unloaded wheel heading in towards Irsk, which is turn number 1, up towards Stallabach Book, the difficult entry to turn number 2 that brings you very quickly up towards Canal Box, which is the sweeping right-hander. Will probably be flat out now in these ever-drying conditions, which is where they head around now, and then down the short straight up towards Lucien Bianchi Booked, which is turn number 4. Advait Deodar looking to see what he might be able to do. He has again safely made it through into this Superpole session, but for the first part of the flying lap, it is the number 50 Hendricks Ford that is quickest. Giorgio Maggi through the first sector of the lap, but I would watch out for that car there. I've been hugely impressed at Hockenheim with the speed that Jesse Vartien had at the wheel of the number 2 Alex Caffey Racing Chevy. He's been mightily impressive so far this weekend here at Circuit Zolder. He just needs to make sure he leaves enough of a gap between himself and the car ahead so that he doesn't compromise a lap. Sideways almost, that was Mayat Snyder slinging the car through the Villeneuve chicane there. Lots of arm twirling to gather up the oversteer on the way out of the corner, but that, I'm sure, is not the quickest line. It was certainly impressive to watch, and just going to show how tricky and difficult it is. These drivers still try and, on their slick tyres, contain the 400 brake horsepower. Now that is Martin Dubeck, the Hendricks Ford, off the circuit there at Boulderback Book. Now, did he outbrake himself again? Because they were told what they needed to do. I think it might be a further problem for him there. Let's hope not, because he was right up there. Flying laps coming in. It is Vittorio Garelli that tops the times at the moment as they come over the start-finish line. Hugo de Sadlier up to 2nd at the wheel of the number 88 Racing Engineering Ford. Jesse Vartien, what can he do at the wheel of the number 2 Alex Caffey Chevy? Only 4th quickest on that first flying lap for Jesse Vartien. Car that's ahead of him is the number 9 Racers Motorsport Ford of Alessandro Brigatti, but it's this car here, number 24, the PK Car Sport Chevy of the Italian driver, the former AutoGP champion, Vittorio Garelli, who is quickest on the first flying lap for Superpole. 45 seconds remaining, which means that they are already, would you believe, onto their last lap in this Superpole session. He heads up towards Sacramentelli and then down in towards the downhill braking area for the Villeneuve chicane. No traffic to worry about. He has managed to so far post a time of 1:41.515, which is a couple of tenths quicker than Hugo de Sadlier managed on his first flying lap at the wheel of the number 88 car. There goes Hugo de Sadlier through the shop now. Mike Snyder not quite as sideways coming out of the Villeneuve chicane that time through. And there was Alessandro Bugatti, I think, trying to move out of harm's way for Jesse Vartiernan, but I suspect that compromised the Finnish driver through the chicane. Watch out for on this lap, Giorgio Maggi, the championship leader, quicker than anybody through the first sector at the wheel of the number 54, the black car with the stripes down the centre of it. He was quicker than anybody through the second sector as well. Is he going to steal pole position away from Vittorio Garelli? Both of those cars about to come over the start-finish line. And as they head over the start-finish line and take the checkered flag, Vittorio Garelli, does he improve his time? Yes, he does. Does he hang on to pole position as Giorgio Maggi goes over the start-finish line? No, he doesn't. Giorgio Maggi, the number 54, is surely going to start from pole position unless somebody else can pull something out of the bag, and the sector times for everybody else that's on flying laps does not suggest so. So it looks as though that is now going to be 4 back-to-back pole positions for Giorgio Maggi. And remember, it's the final weekend of racing, and he leads the championship, so that will please him, and even more so that his main championship rival, Lasse Sorensen, could only muster 5th quickest in that Superpole session. So Lasse Sorensen, in fact, make that 6th quickest in the Superpole session as somebody else improves on the very final lap going over the start-finish line. So it's not quite gone to plan for Lasse Sorensen. It didn't quite go to plan for number 24, Vittorio Garelli, but it has gone to plan for that car there, the number 50 Hendricks Ford, for the 4th consecutive qualifying session in the Elite 2 division of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, heads towards pole positions. That's pole at Most in the Czech Republic, pole at Venray in the Netherlands, pole at Hockenheim Ring in Germany, and pole here at Circuit Zolder. 4 on the bounce for Giorgio Maggi. It doesn't net him any more championship points, but it does put him on the front row of the grid for the race later on. Here are the top 12 from that Superpole session. Pole position goes away of number 50, Giorgio Maggi, and the Hendricks Ford. Second quickest, number 24, Vittorio Garelli. Just 0.6 of a second between them in the end. Not quite as close as we've had throughout the course of the rest of the season. As I say, tricky conditions for everybody. Third quickest was number 88, Hugo de Sadlier, and 4th quickest, number 7, Martin Dubeck. 5th for number 2, Jesse Vartiernan. He'll be pleased with that, but know that he's got work to do again if he wants to finish on the podium, as he did in both of the races at Hockenheim. And 6th for Lasse Sorensen, the number 66 car. Lasse will be joining me in the commentary box for the final Elite 1 race of the 2019 season tomorrow. 7th quickest in the end was Advait Dioda. 8th quickest was number 99, Justin Kuntz. 9th was 8, Nicholas Rizzitano. 10th was number 48, Mike Snyder. And then the final 2 from Superpole. Number 9, Alessandro Bugatti. And number 98, Paul van Pollard. And that is the way that they will line up for the top 6 rows of the grid, subject to official confirmation, for our first Elite 2 race that we've got here later on today here at Circuit Zolder. So that is qualifying and Superpole done and dusted for the moment from Circuit Zolder. It is not the last of the action that we've got throughout the course of the day, though, because if you want to join us for the Elite 1 race later on, that goes green at 13:45, but the stream starts at 13:15 Central European Summertime, which means that it's 7:15 Eastern Summertime in the US. And if that's a bit too early for you, don't go away. Come back for the Elite 2 race that we have later on today. That is 16:50 Central European Summertime, 10:50 AM Eastern Summertime in the US. From myself, Mark Werrell, and everybody here at Circuit Zolder, we'll see you again later on today for the Elite 1 and the Elite 2 races at the finals of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series 2019. Until then, goodbye.
Good morning and welcome to Autodromo di Franciacorta.
Welcome to round 6 of the 2000. Welcome to Circuit Zolder for the final round. The lights go out, the green flag flies. It's all very tight up towards turn 1. Oh, it's close and there's contact. They're side by side. When the checkered flag falls and the race is done, there's always time for celebrations.